Cabbage is starting to show up, and before it gets wormy or too wormy, I want to pick it. I've already picked 2 heads. We've used almost a full head just in various salads, sandwiches. I've added it to tuna salad in place of celery. We made burritos tonight. I put it in our burritos. Fry it with ramen noodles and other bunch of things. We use it a lot. But we are going to have more than I know what to do with, and we don't have refrigeration. So I am going to be making some sauerkraut, and I thought I would show you how I make sauerkraut. So here we go. Okay, so here is part of my cabbage patch. Over here I have a bunch more cabbage, and back there nothing back there is really worth taking, if it ever really produces, but there's like a few heads in here that we're going to grab. Something's been eating this, so I'm hoping it doesn't go all the way through. We'll start peeling back the leaves, and hopefully it's good. Sauerkraut making is a very, very simple, relatively easy thing to do. Basically, it's it's cabbage, the juices that you make from it, and a little bit of salt. And that all gets packed into a jar underneath its own brine, and you let it ferment for about 2 to 4 weeks, and then you have sauerkraut. So it's a really easy thing to make. It's great for kids to make as well. My boys have made this with me. So basically what you need to make sauerkraut is you need cabbage. You can grow your own cabbage, or you can buy store-bought cabbage. You need a good quality salt. You need a big jar or a few big jars, a bowl or 2. If you have a food processor or a grater of some sort, that can make it a lot easier. We have no electricity. We do have solar power, but not enough to run a food processor. So I could like hand shave this, but I'm just going to cut it up so it won't be as fine. And I think that's it. You just need some strong working hands. So this is one of my cabbages. This is a cabbage I picked a few days ago. You want to make sure, first of all, you want to make sure that all of your vessels, from your jars to your bowls to your knives, cutting board, all of that stuff is clean, because we are using good bacteria in the plant and around us to ferment this. The last thing we want to do is introduce bad bacteria into it. So, pig bucket. So just always make sure that your stuff is cleaned. It doesn't have to be sterilized, but it needs to be cleaned. And I sadly don't have running water to clean my vegetables, but these are from my garden, so I'm not really too worried. Just gonna have to make sure that I clean the outer layers. So this one I'm gonna rinse off because it's got a bit of mud and stuff on it. So I think I'll be rinsing off a few. Just gonna go through them and cut everything off. So this is what most of my cabbages look like. They're beautiful, nicely formed, and no worms. So all I'm doing now is I'm just cutting out the center core and just giving the bits to the pigs and any slugs and stuff that I found on the outer peels. So if you're new to fermenting, cabbage is like considered the gateway ferment. because it's one of the easiest things that you can ferment. When I learned how to ferment, and when I started studying fermenting, a lot of the same rules applied as it came to canning. So basically, when you ferment, kind of like when you can, which we are not used to because of mainstreams, because our food has been so streamlined. So we're used to going to a store, buying our food, and feeling certain because the government has approved it that it's safe. But when we do our own food, there isn't anyone to come in and say, yes, you did this right, you're not going to hurt yourself. So you really have to learn to trust your gut, trust your nose and your eyes. If it smells off to you, don't trust it. If it looks off to you, if it's hairy, don't eat it. If a ferment, just like canning, most of the time if it's gone bad, it will smell bad. It won't just, it smells a little off. It will smell off. So you can really trust, you got to learn to trust your gut, and you got to learn to trust your instincts. So what I'm going to be doing is I am going to be slicing this up as thin as I can. And you can either do longer strands, or you can dice it up. It's really up to you. So the recipe that I go off of, or I think is kind of generalized, is 2 to 3 heads of cabbage, give or take, to 2 to 3 tablespoons of salt. I think I picked 4 cabbages. And then I had an extra 1.5. Sauerkraut is really great for people who have never eaten fermented things and would like to start improving their gut health, because it's, like I said, it's light and it's simple, and it can be added to a lot of things. So as I said, a food processor is definitely a quicker way to go. And as much as I believe in using a food processor, there is something to the energy, the natural energy of just working with your hands. So once your cabbage is all shredded, you're gonna have bowls like this. And this is where you invest in your kids' health. No. So this is where all the magic happens. After our cabbage is all shredded, you just put it into bowls. That's it. Split it up however you want. And I am going to do 2 tablespoons of salt per bowl. I'll start yours off, okay, love?
Okay.
So we've added our salt. I did 2 tablespoons. So it's roughly 2 to 3 tablespoons for 2 to 3 cabbages. And then it kind of depends on your cabbage, and as you ferment, you'll kind of get used to how it works. Hold on, sweetheart, I'll show you. So, no, we're not going to pet, Samuel, we're not going to pet it. We're going to massage it. As you massage your cabbage, you will start to feel this moisture release. And if I were to really squeeze on this cabbage, you'll see all this water come out. And that water is going to be our brine. And the salt we put in there, that just helps protect our ferment. Salt keeps, it's a curing agent, so it's going to keep bad bacteria out, or at least it's going to keep the bad bacteria in check, because bad bacteria does not like a very salty environment. So this can take quite a while. That's why it's good to invest in kids. And you are going to want to massage your cabbage where you actually start seeing like lots of liquid coming out.
Can I start?
Can you just wait?
Yep.
And you're just going to keep working it. Here, I'm going to give you, hold on.
Mom's going to help you.
And it can get really messy. So Sam, go ahead, and you just kind of want to start tossing your salt in. But the more you work it, the more water will be reduced. And it's cool because you see how full these bowls are, how much they will reduce down. And you know, you'll look at something like 6 cabbages and you'll think that's a lot of cabbage. But once it gets reduced down into sauerkraut, it really shrinks down.
It really shrinks down.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Okay, you gotta get in there and work it. Work, 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 work. Another thing that salt does is, if you've ever salted things like zucchini, squash, pumpkin, salt a lot of vegetables before you fry them. It helps pull the water out. So beyond the salt helping the ferment, it's also helping to pull the water out. And the water is really starting to come out. So you got to start working it harder and harder and harder. How are you doing there, little one? And this is why it's such a great project for kids to do, because they can just really get out a lot of stuff. And you can see how much this bowl has been reduced already. Keep it in the bowl, love, okay? Here. Mommy's going to add this one and we'll work together, okay?
Wow, there's nothing there. It was like the top. Wow, you're right. There is like nothing after.
Mm-hmm.
How long does it take for our sauerkraut to be ready?
So, for our sauerkraut to be ready, once we make our sauerkraut and we put it into a jar, then it's going to sit on a shelf in a cool, dry place for 2 to 4 weeks. And you're just going to check on it.
What?
Yeah.
I wanted to eat this tomorrow.
Nope.
We won't be here though in 2 or 4
Yes, we will, Sonia. Keep it in the bowl, not on your legs, please. Here, are you all done? Mom will take over. You're going to eat the cabbage on your hands?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, eat the cabbage on your hands.
There's so much water at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. So this is great exercise. This is great because of all of this wild yeast and wild bacteria that's just floating around in the air. We're introducing all of that stuff into this. And just the energy that went into growing these plants, the energy that went into growing the cabbage, the caring of them in our home, all the way to planting them, watering them, and then growing them here in our garden. All of that magic that they captured from the sun and everything. And that's all captured in this. So here is my bowl. This is mine and Phoenix's bowl. And I added no water to this. I added 2 tablespoons of salt per bowl, and this is just from massaging the cabbage. Oops, and I spilled a little bit. And you can see that the cabbage has been broken down, and as you do it, the juices will release. So now we're just going to wait on Sam to finish up with his. But in the meantime, I am going to start packing my jar. And to pack your jar, you are just going to take cabbage and dump it in. But as we put the sauerkraut into the jar, we are going to pack this down, and we are also going to make sure that the sides and everything are clean. The cabbage has to be completely submerged in this liquid. And if during the 2 to 4 weeks of fermentation you notice that the cabbage is coming above, you need to go and push it back down. You know, something like 6 cabbages might look like a lot, but it's not once it all breaks down. So we're just going to continue covering our jar. If for some reason you don't have enough brine, which is what this watery solution is called, to cover your cabbage, you can add more brine. And I can't remember what the ratio is. I'll have to look. So we are clearly not going to have to add any more brine. And then this project again is just take yourself a little bit of time, and you want to make sure that your cabbage is packed down. There is going to be some strays that float up, and that is okay. You just want to make sure that you have enough liquid covering your cabbage. So this is going to ferment for us. We're going to just cap it. I'm not going to twist this lid on tight. I'm just going to merely just kind of set it on. And that's just to allow it to breathe. You don't want your ferment locked in. You want it to be able to breathe. That is part of the process. Clean the inside of your jar. But you just want to make sure that there are no bits on the inside that aren't underneath the brine, because that will cause you problems. And then you want to find as clean of a leaf as possible. So this one looks. Make sure that you're grabbing clean leaves. And then you want to cover your jar, or cover your cabbage. And this kind of acts like, this is an organic plastic wrap, I guess you could call it. This can act like a little bit of a weight, but it's obviously not heavy enough. This is our ferment. So I am going to let this sit for 2 to 5 weeks. And you want to make sure that you're checking it every now and then. That's one of the most important things. Is to check it. If anything's floating above, just gently push on the cabbage leaves, and make sure everything is submerged. As I was going through the video from sauerkraut making, I noticed that my jar wasn't completely in the screen, and there were a few things that were missed. One of my recording devices stopped recording and missed a whole section. So I'm just going to quickly touch up on a few of the things and give you a brief run through of some of the things that were missed. I will also try and put as much information as I can in the description. And if there is something missing, if you have any questions, feel free to ask away. But basically, when it comes to sauerkraut or making sauerkraut, you can use store-bought cabbage, or you can use homegrown cabbage. Salt. Any good quality sea salt will work. I use a ground Himalayan pink salt because I can buy this bulk at our local store. So once you get your cabbage home, you are going to shred it as fine or dice it as small as you can into manageable sizes. And you are going to put all of that cut cabbage into a bowl. And once it is in a bowl, you are going to massage it until the water starts to get released. And it will create this brine. Once you have the water released from the cabbage and it looks like you have a substantial brine, you will then start packing it into your jars. So this is one part that you couldn't see on the screen. But you are going to pack it into your jars. And when you pack it into your jar, you want to make sure that all of your cabbage is covered in the brine. Again, anytime you put your hands into your jar, anytime you're checking, you want to make sure that your hands are clean. So as you're packing your jar, a funnel is best to use because it helps keep your mess to a minimum. You are going to take your hand and you are going to push down, but you are going to want to push your cabbage down. And as you can see, all the liquid that's on top, and you want to make sure that you are checking on this. So I am just going to place my lid on top. You could even put a thin piece of paper towel or cheesecloth, whatever. I'm just going to put a lid. And what you want to watch for, especially if your sauerkraut is higher in the shoulder of your jar, sometimes as it bubbles and ferments, it can overflow. So you want to make sure that you put it on a plate or somewhere where you can catch all those juices. This you're going to want to put in a cool, dark place for 2 to 5 weeks. And as you're checking on it, smell it. Every time you go and look at it, lift your lid, give it a good smell. Every day you should notice more bubbles. You will start to notice some activity. If you've ever done a kombucha or a sourdough or a ginger starter, all of those things will start to bubble because activity is starting to take place. And every time that you smell it, it's going to start smelling a little bit more acidic and have a stronger vinegary smell to it. And that's the smell we're going after. And like I had mentioned before, when it comes to fermenting or canning, trust your gut. Trust your gut. Trust your instincts. Trust your nose. Trust your eyes. Worst case scenario, you can always try it. Your eyes, your nose, and your mouth will tell you if something's not good. So that's a really, it's a great tool to use because we have them. You know, we don't have to go to the store to buy them. So 2 to 5 weeks, and at around the 2-week mark, you can even start sampling your sauerkraut. And so that between that 2 to 5 weeks, that is when you are going to build that that taste, the flavor. So if you want a really weak sauerkraut, if you're just getting used to sauerkraut and you don't want a really, really strong pungent sauerkraut, you can stop it at 2 weeks. If you really like a strong, really pungent tasting sauerkraut, let it go to 5 weeks. But like other ferments, you can taste a little bit. And then once it gets to a flavor profile that you like, lid it, put it in the fridge, and it's ready to eat. And this can be enjoyed on all sorts of things at breakfast time, on eggs. We do like a bacon, lettuce, sauerkraut on toast. It's great just alone on sourdough bread. You can put this into soups, into stews. You can put it on top of chilies. You can put it into casseroles or on top of casseroles. A lot of times, especially in the winter, because that's when we do, in the fall times when we do a lot of our harvesting, we will use this as like, this is our ketchup. I just wanted to also add some of the reasons why sauerkraut, and not just sauerkraut, but fermented foods is really, really good to add to not just your diet, but your partner's diet, to your whole family's diet. Fermented foods are very safe for kids. They're really great for kids to get involved into, especially at a young age, because it helps build up their palate and it helps build up their gut biome. Things like headaches, dizziness, fatigue, bloating, indigestion, heartburn, joint pain, inflammation, brittle nails, brittle hair, poor skin, all of those things can be linked to our gut. That's not to say that those things can be cured by our gut, but a lot of those things can be linked to our gut. So if our gut biome is not supported and doesn't have high probiotic counts, it's not able to nourish us. And what that looks like is when we nourish our biome, our guts are able to break down and process foods and make them more digestible for us. When foods are easily digestible for us, we are able to absorb more nutrients. We will have less indigestion. Our body won't take as long to process. And those things, when our body can process and take on more nutrients, that is going to show, whether it's our skin or our hair or our nails or headaches or fatigue. So if you've ever been on antibiotics, the doctor might say, go get some yogurt or go to your local pharmacy and buy a bottle of probiotics. A bottle of probiotics is going to cost you probably around $30, and it's not going to give you near the probiotic count that sauerkraut or other fermented foods will. Yogurt, especially store-bought yogurt, is, again, not going to have nearly the amount of probiotic count that you need to counteract the damage that can be done through antibiotics. So ferments are really, really good to have when you are feeling ill, when you are on antibiotics, as all they do is support your gut and they encourage good bacteria growth. Ferments have been shown to improve brain function. You can flavor your ferments. Ferments making sauerkraut is a great thing to make with family and friends. As you saw from the video, my boys can really get in there. Another great thing about sauerkraut is that it contains high amounts of vitamin C. It actually contains more vitamin C than just cabbage, raw or cooked. when you ferment your cabbage, it actually makes more vitamin C available to us. It just does this little thing when it's fermenting, and it just increases the bioavailability of vitamin C. Sauerkraut is great and easy to eat. Sauerkraut is great for boosting your whole immune system, and it's a great intro into ferments, as they call sauerkraut the gateway ferment. So yeah, that's that's a whole lot of information, a lot to digest. Pardon the pun. But if you're new to sauerkraut, if you're new to fermentation, I say buy yourself one head of cabbage and give it a shot. It is really good. I literally will add it to everything. Sauerkraut and cottage cheese are like my two main condiments that I add to probably every dish except for desserts. They're great to pack into kids' lunches. They're school safe. And it's just a great, healthy thing to give your family. And you know that it's something that you've made. And not only is it good for them, but it's really, really healthy for them. So I hope you found this video useful and helpful. And if there's anything I've missed, or you've got any comments, if you've made ferments of any kind, if you have a favorite sauerkraut flavor, feel free to share. And yeah, I just want to thank you for being here, and thanks for watching my sauerkraut video, and I wish you the best of luck making sauerkraut. Bye.